This video is meant to provide the average PC user with the latest fast and easy PC storage options for their files. I'll be providing information on the latest interfaces out there on a consumer level as of November 2020 and my ideal setup and the reasons why I use this type of setup. I have timestamps with descriptions below for the video and a document link that provides information and links to the parts mentioned in the video. I like to use 3 storage drives for my PC setup. Ideally, I would use 3 NVMe M.2 SSDs, but in my case, I'm using what I have available. So in the middle, I have a PCI Express 3.0 NVMe M.2 SSD internal to my PC for my operating system. And to the left, I have a PCI Express 3.0 NVMe M.2 SSD, either internal or external to my PC, for storing and using my day-to-day files such as audio, video, documents, CAD files, and etc. Keep in mind the different file formats out there for hard drives or /SSDs so you can easily move files in between different operating systems. I prefer to use an external drive because it's easier to transport files to another computer in case my PC dies or my operating system gets corrupted or I need to work on another PC. Just note, keep in mind, though, due to current interfaces and technology available, if you use an external drive like I have to the left, you won't get the maximum speeds available on the NVMe SSD. So for things like video rendering or consistent storage usage, it may be better to keep the second drive internally connected to the PC to get the best speeds. You just have to make sure your hardware, such as your motherboard, has 2 M.2 slots. And also that if you have 1 or 2 video cards, that you won't max out the amount of lanes you have, PCI Express lanes, to use 2 SSDs, NVMe SSDs. And then also keep in mind that most of the PCI Express NVMe SSD enclosures, like I have on the left, are designed for the PCI Express 3.0 interface as of November 2020, as far as I know. The latest standard is PCI Express 4.0, and that has the fastest speeds. But most usage cases probably won't notice a difference unless you're like a hardcore video rendering user, or maybe even gaming. Although I've heard that for gaming, the CPU and the video card are more of the bottleneck. And also most of the enclosures, unfortunately, I found are maxed out at 2 terabyte capacity. Hopefully this will change down the road. So point number 3, I would recommend using another NVMe M.2 SSD inside of an enclosure as a third drive. And I have this third external drive. Mine is an old SATA spinning hard drive, and it randomly loses connection. Plus it's a lot slower than an NVMe SSD. This is used to back up the second drive that I have to the left for external file storage usage, and I back it up periodically so I don't lose my files in case one day it may go out or just stop. So once again, for the third hard drive, I would recommend an NVMe M.2 SSD, but in this case this is just what I had available. So just keep in mind the older SATA interface spinning hard drives like I have to the right side of the screen. They're a lot slower. They're slowly becoming more obsolete. Even the older SATA SSDs are becoming obsolete because they're slower than the PCI Express NVMe SSDs. So from my experience, you can corrupt or destroy the spinning SATA SSDs a lot more if you don't disconnect them properly versus regular SSDs. But also SSDs have fewer moving parts, so they're more reliable and they consume less power too. So here are the links to the parts and their vendor sites. So this is the link for the M.2 enclosure that I used. Now keep in mind you won't get the fastest speed here, even though it says 10 gigabits per second. There's always bottlenecks within the different systems, interacting with your motherboard and what kind of operating system you have. And here are the links to the vendor's site. So this is PCI Express 3.0, as you could see below, for the interface, and these are the read-write speeds that they claim, the theoretical read-write speeds of 3500, 3300. And this is the link to that drive. So the 2 terabyte capacity is $250, and as you can see for the PCI Express 4.0, the read-write speeds are almost 7,000, 5,000, and in this case it's a 1 terabyte capacity, and it costs almost the same as a 2 terabyte PCI Express 3.0, but it's a lot faster, and hopefully the cost will drop over time. Now, the reason why I recommend the Samsung ones is because basically, even though they're a bit more expensive, they have good quality, they got great reviews, they got a good warranty, and they have more consistent fast speeds based on benchmarks and also based on my personal usage. So, for example, here's my setup. I have basically a 256 gigabyte PCI Express NVMe Samsung drive here for my Windows operating system, and I bought a 1 terabyte APG NVMe SSD, and I feel like it's not as fast as the Samsung one. So typically you can kind of get a feel based on, once you use your PC consistently and what you do with it on a day-to-day basis, you can figure out if things are as slow or fast as they used to be. So I would recommend basically getting the larger NVMe if you can, once they come out with a faster speed for the PCI Express 4.0. But if you're constrained by budget, you could go with the lower price one and lower capacity. But typically the larger capacity ones are also faster. So in my case, I use a lot of files, and as you could see on my external drive, my 1 terabyte, it's almost full. I have like 140 gigabytes left. And you got to keep in mind that you want to leave at least, I think, 20 to 25% capacity of your SSD. Otherwise, it can wear out more just to the nature of the technology. But maybe later down the road, this will change. There's various sites that you could Google to tell you why. And then you could check out these benchmarks on these two websites. Passmark is really good for benchmarking of computer hardware, but they give the latest benchmarks for the SSDs out there. Most of these are the Gen 4, and below them are Gen 3 in terms of scores. And then there's a second one. This is more subjective because it's user-based, and it can vary based on the type of hardware setup the person might have. But I use these for reference to decide what I'm going to purchase next. In case, the technology changes, these websites will have the latest benchmarks and results. So a cheaper storage option are basically these Samsung flash drives. I like these a lot because they're really compact. But you could use this if you're really budget constrained. I use it on my Raspberry Pi for storage, but I don't like to use it as consistent hard drive storage. They're not designed for frequent usage. They're not designed for as much endurance as regular SSDs. So you can also lose them more easily because they're so much more smaller. But the reviews are great, and if you do simple stuff like Word files and docs, the read-write rates are more than good enough. I like to use a small 32 gig capacity only for boot drives for these two programs I'd recommend. This one, basically, it tests your memory if it's corrupt, and you can just put the program into the flash drive. I believe it'll boot straight from the flash drive when you start up your PC. Make sure you change your boot priority in your BIOS to start with the external drive, and it should start up just fine. This other one that I really want to mention, this has been useful for me, and it's a hard drive cloning software. And it's free. Its GUI is not that great. Its graphical user interface, it needs improvement, but it's free, and I was successful the first time I used it. Basically, there's other paid software out there, and a lot of the newer versions, they're horrible in terms of compatibility with Windows 10 and other operating systems, but this worked great for me for restoring my computer when my Windows operating system became corrupt. So I basically store all the backups on my second hard drive that I have to the left on my picture, and then I restore the backups onto the hard drive inside of the PC. So, and just keep in mind, if you're going to use the second hard drive a lot and for hardware or hard drive intensive workloads, then you might just want to keep it hooked up into the PC for getting the maximum speeds out of it. Hopefully this helps.